Hey, a pleasant good day, everyone. This is Sports Fanatic News. I'm Joe Boric, and this is going to be a new segment called Quarterback Talk with Joey B. And I am going to start doing this every so often once stuff actually starts. But I wanted to put out the first episode after the draft, and since obviously we've had some quarterbacks in free agency, I also want to say first and foremost, please check out Andrew Santangelo and I's podcast, True Philadelphian Sportscast, and all our segments on the Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, and Phillies, plus our Life in Quarantine segment we picked up during this quarantine period. Please check that out on Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's also on Spreaker, and it is on Apple Podcasts and most of the other apps you find your podcast, because we use the great Anchor app, which helps to put stuff out there for you, so I don't have to figure out how to do all this link placement stuff. But also in news on that, I am going to try to figure out how to do this link placement stuff so I can put our shows up on this account on YouTube so that we can get more viewership that way as well. And for this segment, this is just going to be on quarterback talk, and I wanted to start it off now. And the next one, I am not sure when it'll be out, obviously, since everything's still in flux right now during the quarantine period. But I wanted to start this one off by talking about Andy Dalton, who's on our division rival now, the Dallas Cowboys, which, of course, if we're talking about quarterback-wise, gives them a very good quarterback room, along with the Eagles, who brought in Jalen Hurts. Whether we agree he should have been a second-round pick or not, I don't think that should have been the case either. I thought if we picked him, it would be more a fourth round or later type thing, or maybe in the third at the earliest, because of his skill set, but I never thought we would choose a second on him. But be that as it may, he's still, with his skill set and the way he plays the game, really adds a lot to our quarterback room. Plus, from everything we hear, how much they love Nate Sudfeld. If he really is that solid of a backup and has a potential to be a McCown-esque backup in the NFL, then that's also very helpful. So here in Dallas, you have two very good quarterback rooms. My thing is, I was shocked Andy Dalton honestly went to the Cowboys. I was thinking he would go somewhere he has a chance to start, which would either be maybe even the Chargers, because you have Taylor competing with Herbert, where for me personally, I agree that with the analysts that think Justin Herbert would be best from having a year off or most of the year off. So getting Andy Dalton in there would also help to have guaranteed that. I was also thinking the Patriots. We saw rumors with the Patriots as soon as he got released by the Bengals, but that was not obviously to come to fruition, because that seemed like a perfect fit. The dude, very accurate. He can go deep. He can do all this other stuff. And I mean, he's a more impressive quarterback than most people think. I remember I pulled up on my Instagram a stat the other day on Andy Dalton and other quarterbacks, which is since 2007 or 2011, only 6 quarterbacks have hit the following marks: 3,000 or 30,000 passing yards, 200 passing TDs, and they have gotten 70 wins. Those people are Breeze, Roethlisberger, Rodgers, Ryan, Brady, and of course Andy Dalton. So Andy Dalton is a guy that's not talked about that much because of really the system and cultural organization he's played with has a lot to do with that. He's a guy that can establish himself in Dallas and probably move on and get a starting job in the following year, and also could have potentially been signed as a security blanket because of this whole contract issue Dallas is having with Dak Prescott, who, of course, should be paid with the way he's played as well. And Dez Bryant seemed like he was coming at Tony Romo, obviously, and it seemed like he was in his talks. But in terms of the premise of paying Dak, he's absolutely right. They should pay Dak because they have paid many other people in the past, and Prescott has been able to play pretty well for them. And it's just the way, the nature of the beast, the quarterback market, whoever's next up tends to be the highest paid. So that's just the nature of the beast, and I think he will end up getting paid. Moving on to another guy that's in an absolutely perfect situation as a backup is Jameis Winston. This is a guy that came on after throwing 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions last year, but had over 5,000 yards. Before that, he was very similar with, I believe it was a 1.4 to 1.5 interception rate they showed on the great Fox Sports show First Things First when I was watching it the other day. and that's very close, even including last year. And then if we look at the first 5 NFL seasons between Brees and Winston, he had an 84.9 passer rating, Drew Brees, to Winston's 86.9. So Winston's, even after last year, still better, where everyone makes the argument, since he's been there, some analysts have made the argument, I should say, that he is going to work out perfectly, because if you look at their stats, when Brees went there from the Chargers, who was not on a Hall of Fame track with the Chargers, when he went to the Saints and was able to make better risk calculations, because he's still a gunslinger and risk-taking quarterback, he just is great at calculating his risk. He had his interceptions drastically drop, and he became on his Hall of Fame trajectory. So people are saying that's a great chance, and I agree that I also feel Jameis Winston has a great chance, and the best chance being in New Orleans, where I think he has the best chance to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees, who's likely to retire after this year, now having that gig set in stone to be an announcer after his career. So I think Jameis is in the perfect spot with Sean Payton, who might not be a guy that has gotten you over the top as much as you hope, but at least for quarterback, their room is known to be absolutely fantastic of a quarterback room, and with their coaching staff, so I feel that they will be perfectly fine, and Jameis might end up becoming our heir apparent there. Another quarterback that was set up very well, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is because it seems like they have finally found their man in Denver post-Peyton Manning, is Drew Lock. John Elway's been looking for his guy post-Peyton Manning. He's obviously drafted the Trevor Siemians, the Brock Osweilers, the Paxton Lynches of the world, all of which have not panned out. Paxton Lynch also played about 5 games, which was the least of any first-round pick in NFL history. So, obviously, that one did not pan out, because a guy that started 5 games, that's not good from a first-round pick. But the point being is, it seems like he's finally found his guy in Drew Lock. I like the Mizzou kid. I think he's pretty good. He's got good arm talent. He's obviously not the tallest dude out there. He's one of the shorter. Well, I mean, he's 6'4". He's a pretty decent size, I should say. I was confusing him with someone else. Excuse me, but he's a guy that just has good arm talent. To me, when he came in last year, he threw 7 touchdowns and 2 picks at the end of the year. He probably should have been in. It's because he's a third-round pick. I see that they wanted to kind of move him along slower. But when you saw how well he kind of fit into the offense, and how Jeff Driscoll was more of just a limited backup quarterback in the league with some athletic talent, he probably could have been in a little sooner. But be that as it may, they set him up, obviously, by bringing in a guy like KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy in the first 2 rounds, after already having Deshaun Hamilton, the speedster, and obviously Cortland Sutton. So they're setting their quarterback up for high success. So that's a very good sign for them. And then obviously you have another, if we're moving to other young quarterbacks in the AFC, you have the Buffalo Bills and their quarterback Josh Allen, who's continuing to develop, and they also drafted a very good prospect in the late rounds in Jake Fromm, who's known for being a good, accurate passer, but lacks the strength to potentially be a great NFL quarterback. But he definitely can hit his spot when needed. And with the coaching of Sean McDermott, I could see a way of them finding a way to definitely develop him. And they brought in the former pick of the Giants, Davis Webb. So if anybody can probably pull some talent out of guys like that, that's also Sean McDermott, who's very good with, obviously, figuring stuff out for the quarterback. They got Gabriel Davis, the kid out of UCF, who I really like and think will be a solid late-round receiver. They, of course, traded for Stephon Diggs. Then they have one of the better slot receivers in the league in Cole Beasley and John Brown. Killed it there with Josh Allen. Tyler Kroft's a pretty decent tight end. So looking through their team, I think their offense is set for pretty good success, and they have a decent line. They've really helped to build a good, successful team for Josh Allen. Another good young quarterback in the AFC is, of course, Sam Darnold, who still needs more help and needs his offensive line to step up. He clearly has the more lacking team still. One of his best receivers is still going to be Jamison Crowder, because Denzel Mims has a chance to be a hell of a player, but he is just coming in, and he's a guy that everyone believes is going to be more of a project. So, with that being said, he still is a guy that probably is going to take a little bit longer to hit his peak as a quarterback just because of the organization he's in. And then obviously Tua, who went to Miami to round out the AFC East after this with the Patriots, is a guy that's going to get time to develop. I envision Ryan Fitzpatrick starting there. The Patriots, I envision Jarrett Stidham starting. It seems like Bill Belichick's all in on him, and if it's somebody he trusts, there's no reason to doubt a coach like Bill Belichick. We'll see what Stidham could do. He's talked about how well he really looked last year at getting just better and better each week, and how well he quickly grasped the offense, which, as everyone knows, is not common with England or New England's complex offense. Baltimore, I don't even have to speak on their quarterback. Lamar Jackson's a freaking tank. He is a great athletic talent. He's just going to get better and better each year. And there's nothing more that needs to be said there. The dude's one of the most fun people to watch in the NFL. Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger, of course, is coming back from a major injury. You don't know what you have there, but I have no concerns for them if Ben Roethlisberger stays healthy. They still have a great receiving core there. They still have good tight ends. Big Ben is still able to get it done, and they had 8 wins last year. They won 500 without him, with guys they had no business having that record with. So I have no issues thinking they can be successful. And then Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, of course, he's going to take some time. Their team's still growing. They're retooling. They're figuring it out. They had a very solid draft, but they're still putting everything and all the pieces together. So he's a guy that I think will have a good year, but probably not have the most magnitude stats because his team is still growing. Cleveland and Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, from interviews this offseason, I would check him out. It looked like the dude's matured a lot more. He's more focused on just honing in on football, really getting in and out with the wide receivers, meaning getting the ins and outs of their games and figuring every aspect out to be able to really build up the best chemistry with his team. So I feel like he's going to have a more successful season this year, and he's going to go back more to how he was playing in his rookie year than the Baker Mayfield we saw of last year, where, like Stephen A. Smith said, he had more commercials than he had wins. So I think he's going to get a lot better. Deshaun Watson is another very talented quarterback. There's not much I need to say about his play. He really, if he was in a better situation, would have a chance to be up there, talked, in my opinion, with the Mahomes and Lamar Jacksons of the world. But obviously he's not going to be able to be talked necessarily in those levels simply just because of Bill O'Brien and the situation he's in. But he's a hell of a player. They're still going to do fairly well because of him and the defense and some other just massive talents they have on that team that regardless of what Bill O'Brien does, they're probably still going to go at least 500. They were 10-6 last year. I don't see them dropping off. Tennessee, of course, his game manager, Ryan Tannehill, after he stepped up and took over from Marcus Mariota, he just works perfectly into that offense. He's able to duck down, make the throws. He can make the deep throws when needed to their speedsters. So I think he's perfectly okay and perfectly fine. The Colts obviously have one of the most interesting situations, bringing in Phillip Rivers in what many consider the twilight of his career, and then they obviously still have Jacoby Brissett in there when needed, and they drafted Jacob Eason in the, I believe it was the fourth round out of Washington to potentially be their future quarterback behind Phillip Rivers. And then Jacoby did very well last year before getting injured. It's just after he got injured, he came back and couldn't really get going at all, most likely because of the injury. So they also have, in my opinion, one of the better quarterback rooms as long as Rivers is able to kind of reestablish himself. In New England, they have one of the better underrated quarterback rooms because Eason, we don't know what he can do, but fourth-round picks, later-round picks have been forced into it before, and we've seen things like from Dak, for example. And then Brissett, we already know he can do some good things. So I don't have any issues there. They, of course, got him, Trey Burton, who's has some injury concerns, but if he can stay healthy, he's a great tight end. I think Jack Doyle's set to see his stats go back up in the later years of his career, having a guy like Rivers there. And then you also have Zach Pascal, who, in my opinion, can be a guy that can start to kind of step up for you and contribute more. He's a decent size receiver. You have Michael Pittman, who you obviously expect to step up for you as you drafted him this year. And you have Desmond Payton, who you got in the 6th round out of Washington State, who's a guy that's more of a chance piece, but definitely has a chance to be something. So they have a lot of receivers that have a chance to definitely develop and be something with Phillip Rivers. They also have a lot of speed guys that they brought in as their chance guys, which makes total sense as we know Rivers' sidearm thing, great at launching it down the field. And for today, I'm going to cover, to keep this video short, the rest of the AFC teams on this list, and then the only NFC team other than the Saints and the few I think I referenced earlier were our Eagles, and then I'll go through that whole list of NFC teams tomorrow or at a later date to have a couple segments of QB talk with Joey B before the actual season comes back. Kansas City is another team just like Baltimore. I don't have to talk about anything about their quarterback. Just from anyone that knows a damn about football, you know they have the best quarterback in the NFL right now. The dude could do anything, make all the throws, basically throw it across his body, probably halfway down the field if he has to. So I don't have anything else I need to say about Patrick Mahomes other than the fact that he is already on the track to be a legend, just playing the amount of years he has already. We already talked about Drew Lock and how he was set up, so we don't have to go back there. The Chargers, I already touched on them because I thought that Andy Dalton going there would make sense. Cam Newton going there also makes a hell of a lot of sense for 1 year because you want to have the chance to have Justin Herbert be able to develop. I think Cam going there, that's a great chance for him to be able to reestablish himself because they have a very solid team that just hasn't been able to figure it out. I think him going there with his talent, assuming he can stay healthy and we get some of the healthy Cam Newton statistics, they can be a very sneaky threat of a team, San Diego, or the Los Angeles Chargers, So I feel that's a great option for them. With Tyrod, I think they have a chance to be a decent team and still let Herbert sit out because a lot of people forget Tyrod Taylor's a pretty decent athletically inclined quarterback. He can move, he can slide the pocket, he's very good on those short throws, and he's very good at limiting interceptions. He's a pro game manager. That's the perfect backup guy and a guy that can definitely start in certain years. Look how solid he looked on the Bills. So I think they have a chance to even be solid with him, and they already have a solid quarterback room, but I do also think Cam Newton would fit perfect there. Vegas has an underrated quarterback room. Derek Carr, who's starting to look like he's getting back a little bit, was looking better at the end of last year, and Marcus Mariota, who they're probably going to use in certain schemes with knowing John Gruden and probably use that fairly well. So they have a pretty underrated and decent quarterback room there, especially if Derek Carr in Vegas coming to the change of scenery, and also they have Deshaun Kaiser, who we know is athletic, hasn't been able to figure anything out in the NFL, and Nathan Peterman, the interception king. So I think Derek Carr is going to have a very solid year, his first year in Vegas. And then I think Mariota is a very opportune and solid backup. I mean, we know from the draft time how much John Gruden loves him when he still worked for ESPN back then. So I thought that was a perfect fit for him, a good chance for him to reestablish himself. Knock on wood, because I love Derek Carr. I hope he doesn't get injured. But if Carr does get injured, that's a perfect opportunity for him. So that has been mostly the AFC and a few NFC touches. QB talk with Joey B. I will have another segment on this tomorrow or the next day, which will then touch on the rest of the NFC team. And I might have another video today or tomorrow that just touches on the overall news in sports and some other things. Have a great, safe, and healthy day, everybody. Remember to stay positive, stay well. We are going to get past this, and we are going to all be back together at it soon enough. Please be safe and stay safe distance from each other and adhere to all the guidelines, everybody. I love you all. I love the support. Thank you. Stay safe and well. Peace out.